Dr. Sarith Velmora had always prided herself on her logical approach to crisis. As a Kelthian, emotion was considered a weakness, a distraction from rational thought. Yet as she watched the medical bay's life support readings drop to critical levels, she found herself experiencing something uncomfortably close to fear. The Infinite Curiosity had been her home for 6 rotations, state-of-the-art research vessel funded by the Kelthian Medical Consortium. Now it was little more than a tomb drifting through the emptiness of the Vale sector. "Doctor, another one has stopped breathing," said her assistant Torin, his gray skin even paler than usual. His 3-fingered hands trembled as he checked the vital signs of the young engineer lying motionless on the floor. They had run out of medical beds 2 days ago. Now the survivors simply lay wherever there was space, their silvery blood crystallizing in the cold. As the ship's heating systems failed one by one, Sarith moved to the engineer's side, her scanning device confirming what she already knew. "Mark the time. That makes 7. She spoke without inflection, maintaining the clinical detachment her people valued. Inside, however, something was breaking. She had trained for 15 years to save lives. Now she could do nothing but watch her colleagues die. The catastrophe had begun innocuously enough. They had been studying a spatial anomaly near the edge of explored space, collecting data on unusual energy readings that could revolutionize their understanding of subspace physics. Then the anomaly had surged unexpectedly, washing over their ship with a wave of exotic radiation. The blast had torn through their primary systems like they were made of paper. Engineering Chief Korath had managed to seal the reactor breach before it destroyed the entire ship. But the effort had cost him his life, along with 8 others in the engine room. That had been 4 days ago. Since then, the 18 survivors had watched helplessly as their ship died around them. The distress beacon was broadcasting, but they all knew the mathematics. The Vale sector was far from established shipping lanes. The Kelthian government had already sent a message acknowledging their distress call and informing them that no rescue vessels could reach them in time. The message had been brief and factual, as was proper. There had been no false hope, no empty comfort. Just numbers and probabilities. "How long?" asked Commander Thex from where he sat against the bulkhead, his breathing labored. The commander had sustained internal injuries during the initial blast. Without proper medical equipment, Sarith could do nothing for him except administer the last of their pain medication. 6 hours. "Perhaps 7, Sarith replied, checking the environmental systems one final time. "The oxygen recyclers are operating at 14% efficiency. When they fail completely, we have approximately 1 hour of breathable atmosphere remaining in this section." Dex nodded slowly, his large dark eyes reflecting acceptance. "We should record our final logs. The consortium will want to know what we discovered before." He trailed off, but they all understood. Before they died, one by one, the survivors moved to the communication terminal, each recording their observations, their findings, their final messages to families they would never see again. When Sarith's turn came, she found herself staring at the recording interface, uncertain what to say. Her research notes were already logged. Her family would receive notification of her death through proper channels. What else was there? "I regret that our mission will remain incomplete," she finally said, her voice steady. "The data we collected suggests revolutionary applications for medical technology, particularly in cellular regeneration. I hope future researchers will continue this work." She paused, then added something uncharacteristic. "I wish we had more time." As she finished, a soft chime echoed through the dying ship. Torin looked up from where he had been sitting quietly, preparing for the end. "Doctor, the communication system just activated. There's an incoming transmission." Sarith felt a flutter of something she immediately suppressed. Hope was illogical when all probabilities pointed toward death. Nevertheless, she moved to the console and activated the receiver. The signal was weak, heavily distorted by the exotic radiation still permeating the area. But there were words embedded in the static. ... Vessel. This is Captain Sophia Reyes of the human cargo ship Wandering Star. We've detected your distress beacon. What is your status? The medical bay fell silent. Every conscious survivor turned toward the communication terminal. Humans. The newest species to achieve faster-than-light travel. barely 3 generations into their expansion into space. According to the Galactic Advancement Protocols, they were supposed to be restricted to their home sectors, still under observation by the elder species. What was a human ship doing this far from regulated space lanes? Commander Vex pulled himself to his feet with visible effort. This is Commander Vex of the Kelthian research vessel, Infinite Curiosity. Our ship has suffered catastrophic systems failure. We have 9 survivors. Life support will fail within 7 hours. Stated the facts without embellishment, as was proper. There was a brief pause before the human captain responded. Understood, Infinite Curiosity. We're calculating an intercept course now. Hold tight, we're coming to get you. Sarith exchanged glances with Torin. The humans were known for their emotional nature, their tendency toward impulsive decisions. But this was beyond impulsive. This was potentially illegal. Captain Reyes, she interjected. We appreciate your response. But you should be aware that rescue operations in this sector may violate several interspecies protocols. The Kelthian government has already determined that rescue is not feasible. Doctor, the captain's voice carried an odd tone. One Sarith's translator identified as ironic amusement mixed with something else. Determination, perhaps. Dr. Sarith Velmora. I am senior medical officer aboard this vessel. Dr. Velmora, I appreciate the legal warning, but where I come from, protocols don't trump people's lives. We've got you on our scanners, and by my calculations, we can reach you in about 5 hours. Can your life support hold out that long? Sarith checked the readings again. Possibly. The systems are degrading faster than projected, but if we seal off all non-essential sections and reduce our oxygen consumption, we might extend our reserves to 6 hours, and that's what we'll do, Captain Reyes said firmly. Start your emergency protocols, Doctor. My crew is preparing for emergency extraction. And Doctor, we're not leaving anyone behind. That's not how we do things. After the transmission ended, the Kelthian survivors looked at each other in bewilderment. Torin spoke first. They're really coming for us. Why would they risk violating interstellar law for strangers? Commander Vex sank back down, his expression thoughtful. I've read reports about humans. They have an unusual cultural trait, an instinctive response to distress calls. Their history is filled with stories of individuals risking themselves for others, even for those they've never met. That's illogical, said one of the engineers, a young female named Lyris. The risk-benefit analysis doesn't support such behavior. Perhaps, Sarith said quietly, already beginning preparations to extend their life support. But right now, their illogical behavior might save our lives. Everyone gather personal essentials only. Conserve your energy. We need to reduce our oxygen consumption as much as possible. As the survivors began sealing off sections of the ship and preparing for possible rescue, Sarith found herself contemplating the human captain's words. We're not leaving anyone behind. That's not how we do things. What kind of species made such absolute statements? The Kelthians prided themselves on rational decision-making, on weighing every choice against logical outcomes. Yet here they were, alive only because a species they'd considered. Emotionally unstable, had ignored logic and chosen compassion instead. 3 hours passed with agonizing slowness. The life support systems continued to fail, forcing the survivors to crowd into an increasingly small area of the medical bay. Breathing became difficult. The cold was intense. Sarith watched 2 more of her colleagues slip into unconsciousness, their bodies unable to cope with the declining oxygen levels then. Finally, another transmission. Infinite Curiosity. This is the Wandering Star. We're approaching your position. Prepare for emergency docking. Through the viewport, Sarith saw lights piercing the darkness, the running lights of a ship. Considerably larger than she'd expected for a simple cargo vessel, the Wandering Star maneuvered with surprising grace, matching their drift and extending a docking collar toward their auxiliary airlock. Commander, I'm reading some concerning signatures in this sector. Came a new voice over the channel, presumably one of the human crew. We've got 3 ships dropping out of FTL about 2 light minutes from our position. They're broadcasting Kelthian military codes. Sarith's blood chilled. The government. They must have been monitoring the situation. Captain Reyes, You should leave immediately, Commander Thex said, his voice urgent despite his weakness. If the Kelthian defense fleet finds you interfering with this situation, there will be severe diplomatic consequences, Commander, with respect. I don't care about diplomatic consequences, Captain Reyes replied, her tone carrying steel underneath the warmth. We're not leaving without your people. Lieutenant Park, how long until we can? Docking collar secured, Captain. We can start bringing them over immediately. Then let's move people. We don't have much time. The auxiliary airlock cycled open, and Sareth got her first look at humans in person. 2 crew members in emergency vacuum suits rushed through, one carrying medical equipment and the other some kind of transport stretcher. The first, a woman with dark skin and kind eyes, visible through her helmet, immediately knelt beside the unconscious engineer. I'm Dr. Jennifer Okafor, she said, her translator rendering her words in perfect Kelthian. We're going to get you all out of here. Who needs immediate assistance? Sarith pointed to the 2 unconscious crew members. They have the most critical oxygen deprivation. The rest of us can move under our own power. Though several have significant injuries, understood, Dr. Okafor worked with efficient speed, attaching portable oxygen supplies to the unconscious Kelthians and monitoring their vital signs. Marcus, help me get these 2 on the stretchers. Dr. Velmora, can you assist the others across to our ship? Working together, the humans and Kelthians began the evacuation. It was chaos-organized chaos, but chaos nonetheless. The humans moved with an energy and urgency that felt foreign to the logical, measured Kelthians. They talked constantly, offering encouragement, coordinating movements, even making small jokes that Sareth's translator struggled to interpret properly. That's it. You're doing great, one human said, supporting Lyris as she stumbled through the airlock. Just a little further. We've got hot food and warm beds waiting for you. Sarith was helping Torin across when a new transmission crackled through the communication system. Human vessel. This is Kelthian Defense Fleet Commander Zeroth. You are interfering with a classified situation. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Through the viewport, Sareth could see 3 Kelthian military vessels approaching rapidly, their weapons arrays glowing with active targeting systems. Her people had come not to rescue, to enforce whatever decision had been made about the infinite curiosity in its crew. Captain Reyes's voice came through clearly, addressing both her crew and the approaching ships. Commander Zareth, this is Captain Sophia Reyes of the Wandering Star. We are conducting a humanitarian rescue operation. We will complete the evacuation of all survivors before we discuss any other matters. You have no authority to conduct operations in this sector. Cease immediately, or we will open fire. Sareth's heart sank. They were going to die after a land. They would take their rescuers with them. She reached for the communication panel, intending to tell the humans to leave, to save themselves. But before she could speak, she heard Captain Reyes's response. Commander, I understand your position, but I'm going to finish getting these people to safety. If you want to open fire on a rescue operation, that's your choice to make. But it's not a choice I'm going to make for you. The channel went silent. The Kelthian warships continued their approach, weapons still active, and aboard the Wandering Star, the humans continued the evacuation. Moving with practiced efficiency, never slowing, never hesitating. They simply kept working, kept carrying the injured, kept offering comfort and assistance as, if there weren't 3 warships bearing down on them with weapons hot, Sarith found herself in the Wandering Star's medical bay, watching Dr. Okafor and her team work to stabilize the most critical patients. Around her, other human crew members were distributing thermal blankets, providing water and nutrients, checking on each Kelthian survivor with genuine concern in their eyes. Last ones aboard. Captain, someone reported over the internal communication system. Sealing the docking collar now. Understood. Engineering? Give me everything you've got. Helm, plot us a course out of here fast and creative. The ship shuddered as the engines engaged. Through the medical bay's small viewport, Sarith saw the infinite curiosity falling away, the lights on its hull flickering one final time before going dark. Her home for 6 rotations? Now a derelict hulk that would drift until it eventually fell into a star or was broken apart by gravitational forces. Their firing warning shots announced one of the bridge crew over the intercom. 2 degrees off our starboard bow, noted Captain Reyes, responded calmly. Maintain course. They're trying to intimidate us. Let's hope they're not actually willing to kill 9 survivors just to make a point. Sarith realized she was holding her breath, an emotional response she would normally have suppressed. But nothing about this situation was normal. She was alive when she should have been dead. Rescued by aliens, her government apparently wanted to remain lost. Now fleeing from her own people's military, while hoping they wouldn't actually fire on a rescue ship, the next 5 minutes felt like an eternity. The wandering star accelerated hard, pushing toward the edge of the sector where they could safely engage their FTL drive. The Kelthian warships pursued but didn't fire again. Sarith didn't know if that was because they weren't willing to kill their own people, or because they weren't willing to commit an act of war against a human vessel. Perhaps both. FTL in 30 seconds, the helmsman announced. Captain, Commander Zareth's voice came through one final time. You have violated multiple interstellar protocols. When you return to civilized space, you will face charges. Captain Reyes's response was quiet but clear. Commander, when I return to civilized space, I'll have 9 people alive who would otherwise be dead. I can live with whatever charges that brings. The wandering star jumped to FTL, leaving the Kelthian warships and the wreckage of the Infinite Curiosity behind. In the medical bay, Sarith felt the familiar sensation of faster-than-light travel washing over her. They were safe. Against all logic, against all probability, they had survived. Dr. Okafor approached her, carrying a cup of something steaming. Hot tea, she said with a smile. Well, our version of it anyway. Might not be what you're used to, but it's warm, and it's got nutrients your body needs right now. Sarith accepted the cup with trembling hands. Dr. Okafor, why did you do this? Your captain could face serious legal consequences. Your ship was nearly fired upon. Why risk so much for strangers? The human doctor sat down beside her, her expression thoughtful. You know, I've been asked that before. When I was in medical school, they told us about the principle of triage, how you allocate resources in emergencies. It's all very logical, very rational. But they also taught us something else. Sometimes the illogical choice is the right one. You help people because they need help. It's that simple. But it's not simple, Sarith protested. There are costs, consequences, political ramifications. Sure, Dr. Okafor agreed. But here's the thing. 10 years from now, when I look back on this day, I'm not going to remember the political ramifications. I'm going to remember that 9 people are alive who wouldn't have been. That seems like a pretty good trade to me. Sarah sipped the strange tea, feeling its warmth spread through her body. Around her, the other survivors were receiving similar care from the human crew. She watched as a young human engineer explained the ship's amenities to Torin using hand gestures and patience. She saw Commander Thex now receiving proper medical treatment, speaking quietly with one of the human officers. She observed Lyris actually laughing at something one of the humans had said. For a species that prided itself on logic, the Kelthians had made a logical decision to let them die. For a species known for emotion and impulsiveness, the humans had made an illogical choice to save them. Yet sitting here, alive and warming her hands on a cup of alien tea, Sarith had to admit that perhaps there was a logic to compassion that her people had never properly calculated. Dr. Okafor, she said quietly, thank you. Your illogical choice saved our lives. The human doctor smiled warmly. You're welcome, Dr. Velmora. And for what it's worth, I don't think it was illogical at all. Part 2. Sanctuary, the Wandering Star. Maintained radio silence for 3 days as it traversed the neutral zones between territories. During that time, Sarith learned more about humans than all her academic study had taught her. She learned that they sang while they worked tactual vocalizations for purposes other than communication. She learned that they touched each other constantly. Casual physical contact that would be considered inappropriate among Kelthians. She learned that they ate together communally, treating meals as social events rather than merely nutritional necessities. Most puzzling of all, She learned that they cared for the Kelthian survivors not as political assets or diplomatic complications, but simply as people who needed help. Dr. Velmora, can I get your opinion on something? Dr. Okafor found Sarith in the observation lounge, where she had been watching the stars stream past. The human carried a medical data pad, her expression thoughtful. Of course, Sarith replied. Grateful for the distraction from her troubled thoughts, I've been reviewing the medical scans we took of your crew. The radiation exposure you experienced from that spatial anomaly, it's unlike anything I've seen before. The cellular damage patterns are unusual. Dr. Okafor pulled up several holographic displays. See how the radiation specifically targeted certain cellular structures while leaving others untouched? That's not random. That's designed. Sarith felt her skin temperature drop. A Kelthian. Fear response. Designed. What are you suggesting? I'm not suggesting anything yet. Just asking questions. Dr. Okafor zoomed in on one of the scans. But if I were investigating this, I'd want to know if that anomaly was natural or artificially created. That would be impossible, Sarah said automatically. The energy requirements alone would be substantial. But not impossible with the right technology, Dr. Okafor finished. Doctor, I'm a medical professional, not a politician. But I've seen targeted attacks before. This radiation signature. It looks designed to disable ship systems while killing crews slowly. Someone wanted you dead, but they wanted it to look like an accident. Sarith's mind raced through the implications. Their research had been sensitive. They'd been investigating applications of exotic energy fields for medical purposes. The Kelthian Medical Consortium funded the work. But there were competing interests, other research groups, corporations that stood to lose significant profits if their discoveries proved successful. I need to speak with Commander Vex, Sarith said suddenly. They found the commander in his assigned quarters, still recovering, but much improved after 3 days of human medical care. When Sarith explained Dr. Okafor's findings, Vex's expression grew grave. I had suspicions, he admitted. 3 days before the incident, I received a communication from Consortium Administrator Vekrin. He suggested we delay filing our preliminary reports, claiming budget concerns. When I insisted on following protocol, he became ... agitated. Vekrin has ties to the Keltros Medical Corporation, Sarith said, pieces falling into place. If our research proved successful, it would obsolete their primary product line. We're talking about billions in losses. Dr. Okafor leaned against the wall, her expression dark. So they tried to kill you, made it look like an accident. And when your government realized what happened, they decided it was cleaner to let you die than investigate? The political complications would be significant, Commander Vex said quietly. Corporate influence in Kelthian governance is substantial. An investigation would expose corruption at high levels. That's monstrous, Dr. Okafor said flatly. That's logical, Sarith corrected, though the words tasted bitter. From a certain perspective, 9 lives are expendable compared to political stability. No. Captain Reyes's voice came from the doorway. None of them had heard her approach. No life is expendable. That's not logic, that's just cowardice dressed up in mathematical clothing. The captain entered the room, her presence somehow filling the small space. She'd been on the bridge for most of the past 3 days, coordinating their route and dealing with the diplomatic fallout that was apparently building in their wake. I've been in contact with Earth Alliance Command, she continued. The Kelthian government has filed formal complaints about our rescue operation. They're demanding we return you to their custody for debriefing and medical evaluation. She made a face that Sarith's translator identified as disgust. They're also threatening sanctions against human shipping if we don't comply. Then you must return us, Commander, Vex said, starting to rise. We cannot allow our rescue to cause harm to your people. Sit down, Commander, Captain Reyes said, her tone gentle but firm. You're in no condition to be playing the martyr. Besides, Earth Alliance Command has already made their decision. And, Sarith asked, her voice barely above a whisper, we're offering you asylum. All of you. If you want it. Captain Reyes looked at each of them in turn. It won't be easy. You'll be considered fugitives by your own government. You can never go home, but you'll be alive, and you'll be free to continue your research or do whatever else you choose. Sareth felt something crack inside her carefully maintained emotional control. You would do this? Even knowing the political cost? Doctor, let me tell you something about humans, Captain Reyes said, pulling up a chair. We haven't been in space very long. Most of the older species look at us like we're children playing with technology we don't fully understand. Maybe they're right. But you know what we do understand? We understand that some things are more important than politics or protocols or diplomatic convenience. We understand that when someone needs help, you help them. It's not complicated. It is complicated, Sarith insisted. This could damage relations between our species for decades. It could impact trade agreements, territorial negotiations, cultural exchanges. Yeah, practical. Captain Reyes agreed. Or it could show the galaxy who humans really are. It could demonstrate that we're not going to play the game, where some lives matter more than others, based on political calculations. It could establish us as the species that actually means it when we talk about justice and compassion. You've got time to think about it. We won't reach human space for another 4 days. Talk to your people. Make whatever decision feels right. Whatever you choose, we'll support it.
After the captain left,
Sareth sat in silence with Commander Thex and Dr. Okafor. Finally, Torrin spoke from where he'd been standing quietly in the corner. I want to stay with the humans. They all turned to look at him. The young assistant had been through as much as any of them, nearly dying in the cold of their failing ship. Now his gray skin had regained its healthy silver sheen. His eyes were bright with something Sarith's translator couldn't quite identify. Their approach to medicine is fascinating, Torrin continued. Dr. Okafor showed me their treatment protocols. They don't just focus on the physical body, they treat emotional and psychological health as equally important. They understand that healing isn't just about repairing tissue. It's about making people whole. He looked at Sareth directly. I've learned more about actual medicine in 3 days with them than in 3 years at the Kelthian Medical Academy. I want to keep learning. You would abandon our people? Commander Thex asked, though his tone was more curious than accusatory. Our people abandoned us, Torrin said quietly. The humans saved us. That seems like a clear choice to me. Over the next 4 days, similar conversations rippled through the Kelthian survivors. Some, like elderly engineer Korvax, decided they wanted to return home despite the risks, arguing that they couldn't abandon their families and their culture. Others, like young Lyris, chose asylum, drawn by the opportunity. To work with technology and ideas their own society would never allow them to pursue. Sareth spent her time divided between helping Dr. Okafor in the medical bay and conducting her own research in the ship's small laboratory. The humans had given her full access to their scientific databases, a gesture of trust that would have been unthinkable between most species. What she discovered both excited and troubled her. Human medical science was, in many ways, less advanced than Kelthian techniques. They lacked the sophisticated cellular manipulation technology her people had developed. Their understanding of complex biological systems was still developing. But they had something else: a willingness to experiment, to take risks, to try unconventional approaches that more logical species would dismiss out of hand. You combine technologies that shouldn't work together, Sarith observed one day. Watching Dr. Okafor treat a human crew member with a hybrid approach that blended synthetic medication with electromagnetic field manipulation, shouldn't according to whom? Dr. Okafor replied with a smile. Just because something hasn't been done doesn't mean it can't be done. We're too new to space travel to know all the rules, so we just try things and see what works. That seems dangerously inefficient. Maybe. Or maybe the efficient approach is to not limit yourself based on preconceived notions of what's possible. Dr. Okafor gestured to the various medical instruments around them. Half of these tools were invented by accident or adapted from completely different purposes. We're figuring things out as we go, and yeah, sometimes we fail. But sometimes we succeed in ways that surprise everyone, including us. Sarith thought about that conversation later in her quarters, as she reviewed the research data she'd managed to salvage from the Infinite Curiosity. Her team had been on the verge of a breakthrough in regenerative medicine, a technique that could have saved countless lives. The Keltros Medical Corporation had tried to kill them to prevent that discovery from threatening their profits. Her own government had been willing to let them die to avoid political complications. But a ship full of humans, strangers from a species her people considered emotionally primitive, had risked everything to save them. Not because it was logical. Not because it benefited them politically or economically, simply because it was the right thing to do. On the fourth day, as the wandering star prepared to enter human space, Captain Reyes called all the Kelthian survivors to the mess hall. "We're about to cross into Earth's Alliance territory," she announced. "Once we do, you'll be under our jurisdiction, and the political situation gets even more complicated. This is your last chance to change your minds about asylum. No one will judge you either way." Psst. 7 of the 9 survivors stood together on one side of the room. Only Korvax and one other engineer stood apart, their decision to return home already made clear. Captain Sareth said, speaking for the group, "We've discussed this extensively. We wish to accept your offer of asylum. We cannot return to a society that tried to kill us and then tried to cover it up. But more than that, ... She paused, searching for the right words.